Hi, I'm Ian Griffiths, and this is a talk from the Building Business Applications with Silverlight series. So in the previous talk, we showed how to acquire an image with a web camera with a view to enabling attendees for events to have an image associated with them. So the example application, users can sign up for events, and we want to be able to have an image so we can check who they are when they sign up and so they can appear with an avatar, maybe in a forum and that sort of thing. Now, webcams all very well, but not everyone has a webcam, and even people who do may already have an existing photo they prefer to use that they've already had taken and just want to upload that instead. And so one way of doing this is to allow them to drag a file onto the application. So we're going to look at how to handle drag and drop from the file system in a Silverlight application. So the first thing we need to do is turn on drop support. We have to set the allow drop equals true property on an element in the user interface. Without that, Silverlight's not going to respond to the drag. So if the user tries to drag something on to the application, they're just going to see the little kind of no entry symbol to prevent things coming in. But if we allow drop, then we can handle the drop event itself, and we can optionally handle the ones that happen during the drag itself. So the drop event is what gets raised when the user lets go of the file, when they take their finger off the button. But you also get a drag enter to say the user's dragged an icon over the application. How do we want to respond? Do we want to say we're going to accept it, reject it? There's also a drag leave, so we know when they've left again. And also a drag over that gets raised as the user moves the mouse around, because we might want to display different feedback according to where the user's dragged the file over our app. But for the simplest thing, just handling the drop event is enough. Silverlight will automatically provide you with some feedback. It will change the mouse pointer to make it clear that we've got a valid drop target there, and that may be all that you need. Now, the API Silverlight presents inside the drop event handler is designed to be very similar to the one that we get in WPF. We get provided with an object we can interrogate to find out what formats of data are available. Because with drag and drop in Windows, there's all sorts of things that can be dragged. Files are not the only thing that can be moved from one place to another. You can do drag and drop between applications, for example. You can select things in a Word document and drag them around within the doc or drag them outside of the document. And there are special formats it provides to represent these things. However, although the API in Silverlight is designed to accommodate this idea, in Silverlight 4, the only format it currently supports is the format for dropping a file from the file system. So right now, the only data format you can ask it for is the file drop format. The only data format it will offer you, if you interrogate it to find out which format it's got, is again the file drop format. So right now, the API looks a little over-engineered. You could have just said, just give me the file, because you know it's going to be a file. But they've enabled consistency with WPF, and also, of course, it means that if they want to, future versions of Silverlight could support other formats if that looked like a useful thing to do. Now, be aware that this feature today only works comprehensively reliably on Windows. On Mac OS X, because there are some differences in the way the browser APIs work, this cannot be guaranteed to work. So the usual solution to this is to provide some extra handling in the DOM. The HTML document object model. You have to add event handlers in there to try and deal with drops in there so that it works when Silverlight can't actually respond to the events itself. And unfortunately, right now, even that's not guaranteed to work. Some browsers it will, some browsers it won't. Hopefully that'll be addressed, because this is an issue that goes way beyond just Silverlight. It affects any application that wants to try and do this. So perhaps in the future this will no longer apply. But right now, this is a problem. So be aware that this is more dependable in Windows than it is in Mac OS X until such time as maybe the browsers resolve this problem. So, bearing that in mind, let's look at what you need to do. The drop event will be passed as its event arguments an object of type drag event args. And this offers a method called getDataPresent, which you can call to interrogate the object to find out whether a particular data format you would like is available. And as I say, the only format supported today is the file drop format, so this is the thing we call to find out whether the data we understand is present. Even though it's the only format you're going to get, you should still call this method, because in the future versions of Silverlight may emerge that support other formats, so you do need to check. It's possible in the future you'll get a drop event that contains data you don't understand. So it's good practice just to check. And then you can call the getData method to retrieve the actual information itself. And this will return you an array of file info objects. So these are from the system.io namespace. The file info object provides you with some information about the file. Now, unless you're writing a fully trusted application that runs out of browser, one that runs with elevated privileges, you're not going to be able to find out the path of the file. In usual operations, Silverlight applications are constrained. They're not allowed to know things about the local file system. So the file info object provides you with access to the content of the file without telling you where it is. So the way we retrieve information from the file is to call the openRead method, which returns us a stream, which gives us access to the file's binary content, and we can then use that to do whatever we need to do. And in this case, remember, the goal is to allow the user to drag an image file into the application. So in this case, we're opening up the stream and using that to set the source of a bitmap image to load the thing in so we can then paint the UI, and maybe we'd also take a copy of the bytes so we can upload the file to the server at some later date. So let's take a look at this in action. I'm going to build a new Silverlight project from scratch. So I'm going to call this drag drop demo. And I don't really need a hosting web application for this. I'm just going to write a standalone Silverlight app for now. And as I say, the main thing I've got to do is make sure I've enabled drop events. So on my root grid element, doesn't have to be the root. You can enable individual elements for drag and drop. If you want to have a drop target that users can drop things on where the rest of the user interface does not respond to drops, you can do that. For this demo, I'm going to make the entire user interface respond to drop events. So I'm going to say allow drop equals true, and I'm going to wire up a drop event handler in the code behind. So in here, the event argument that's passed in provides a data property, which we can interrogate. We can ask for the data straight out. We can say, I'd like the file drop info, or we can find out first of all whether it's present, or we can say, please tell me all the data formats you have to offer, and it will return you a list of the available types. Let's do that first of all so we can see what it looks like. So this is going to be available formats. And just so we can look at the debugger, I'm going to print out some information about this. Let's do a debug.writeLine, available formats.length. So I'm going to run this. And obviously nothing to look at because I haven't put any visible UI elements in there. But let me use one of these demo directories. I'm going to just drag a file in from my demo folder and see what happens. You can see, if you look at the mouse cursor, it's I manage not to let go of it, you can see we've got the change in mouse cursor to indicate that this is a viable place to drop this file. And if I let go, we hit the debugger. If I step over this, available formats ends up being an array with a single string in it called file drop. And that's what we expect with this version of Silverlight. The only format we're offered is the file drop format, which will give us an array of file info items. So let's go on and ask for that. So we should ask, is the one format we expect available? So is the file drop format available? And if it is, then we expect an array of file info items. IntelliSense being too helpful there. File info array e.get data.get data for file drop. And again, for now, I'm just going to print out what we've got. How many did we get here? So let's run this. Once again, I'm going to drop a file in. So the format's available. We ask for the info, and it gives us back an array with one item in it. It does tell us the name of the file, but it doesn't tell us the path of the file. So if we try and ask for the directory, we actually get a security exception. If we were running as a fully trusted application out of browser, we would actually be allowed to discover this information. But if you're running in the browser, or if you're running out of browser without elevated privileges, then you get an exception if you try and read those things. So the only thing we're told is the length of the file and the name of the thing and whether it actually exists or not. because in theory, someone could unhelpfully send us a message saying, oh, this file exists, and by the time we go and look for it, it might turn out not to be there. If I drag a couple of files in, if I select a handful of files and drop those back in, run again, as you'd expect, this time we get an array of file info objects. So there's my PowerPoint and my MDF file are all present. So that's how things look. And then for the image handling, well, I could just use exactly that code. I could call openRead to get the stream back, plug that into a bitmap image and show the results, and we'd be done.